At a press briefing on Monday, New York Republican members of Congress Zeldin and Nicole Malliotakis decried the federal response to the continued surge of migrants crossing the southern border. Zeldin and Malliotakis, both immigration hardliners, blasted the Biden administration for not completing the border wall and opposing the Remain in Mexico policy. Zeldin, who was running for governor against incumbent Democrat Kathy Hochul, accused his opponent of doing nothing about flights of migrants that have landed in Westchester late at night. In recent weeks, Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey have sent buses of migrants to New York City and Washington, D.C. This move has earned them the ire of liberal politicians who accused the GOP governors of using migrants as political pawns. Republicans have countered that progressives are merely getting a taste of what border states and communities have endured since Biden took office.
Well, thank you all for coming out. The surge of illegal immigrants over our southern border is an issue of great concern for all Americans all across our country, not just here in New York. As members of Congress, we are often engaged on the federal response. But our constituents care about the response of all levels of government. First off, to comment on some thoughts on what the federal government can be doing more. Before I introduce my colleague, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, I believe that the federal government has an opportunity to finish construction of the border wall, end catch and release, enforce the Remain in Mexico policy, support our customs and border patrol agents, and stop incentivizing and rewarding illegal entry into our country. There's a real opportunity for us as a nation to show that our nation does in fact have borders. We care about our rule of law. We care about border security. This requires leadership from the Biden administration. It requires President Biden to travel to the border, to meet with local leaders, to meet with local customs and border patrol agents, to hear their feedback. But the solutions are no great mystery as to what the federal government needs to be doing here to tackle this surge of illegal entry. Here in New York, for many months, we have seen flights coming into Westchester Airport and other airports, and Governor Hochul has been completely silent on it. She hasn't had anything to say about it at all. It's only recently that a new method of transportation has come to our area, as these people who have illegally crossed our country are now entering New York City by bus. But this isn't some new issue. So why suddenly speak out, other than the fact that you see a boogeyman in a border state governor who happens to be in the opposite party? But this isn't a red issue or a blue issue. This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. It's not about the federal government versus the state government versus local governments. This is about all of us as Americans, all of us as New Yorkers, working together to tackle this issue. We understand well what needs to get done at the federal level. But we also need our leaders at the state and local level to be doing more in their power to stop incentivizing and rewarding illegal entry. The policies that have been enacted in New York over recent years, both through legislation as well as through appropriations, have been sending a message to people who have come to this country illegally that will be rewarded. For people who want to come to our country, the way to do so is to learn about what the process is, what the laws are, and to respect and honor that process. Unfortunately for some, they're deciding that they will just take matters into their own hands and come here illegally. And it's not just about people who are coming illegally, it's also about things. I'm greatly concerned about the fentanyl that is entering our nation. I'm concerned about the trafficking of all sorts that have increased. Over the course of the coming days and the weeks and the months that are ahead, I'm calling on all of our elected officials at all levels of government, regardless of party, to all do their part. In New York City, there was recently enacted a new law that was overturned, obviously, as it should be, that was to provide the ability to vote in the November 2023 election to individuals who aren't citizens. We've seen education and housing and healthcare benefits being provided to people who are not legally in our country, and it comes from somewhere. We want to be compassionate. As a people, conservatives, moderates, liberals, Republicans, Democrats, independents share compassion for much of these stories we're hearing about. But this money comes from somewhere. And for hard-working New Yorkers who are already struggling the cost of living in New York, they can't afford the added burdensome. If you think about this trajectory this state is on. The Green Light Law was introduced and passed and signed into law not that long ago in Albany. As a consequence, there was less communication and coordination between federal authorities and state and local authorities. We need more. Our law enforcement at all levels of government need to be able to work together and have the support of their elected officials in government. It is important for legislators up in Albany to allow our state and local law enforcement to work more with federal authorities, not less. Additionally, we can't be naive to the amount of crime that's being committed by some who are not legally in our country. And they're going out and committing additional offenses that are serious, that have a victim impact that cannot be ignored. It's the New York public, it's the American public, demanding that this state does more. Along with my colleague, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, and the rest of our New York congressional delegation of Republicans, we sent a letter a week ago to the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, calling on her to take action, to do her part, to help solve this issue. Part of it is for her to finally break the silence in calling on the Biden administration to show an ounce of leadership on this issue. You can't constantly punt off to other people that everything that is your responsibility in the seat that you sit is actually the responsibility of anybody and everybody else. New Yorkers demand accountability, and they're not getting that right now. If you want to sit in the seat of the President of the United States, if you want to run and seat in the seat of the Governor of New York, if you want to be the Mayor of New York City, all these positions come with a responsibility to call it out as it is, regardless of political affiliations. So we ask that the Governor and the Mayor join us in our call to the Biden administration to step up in its efforts to secure our southern border. Again, to recap: finish construction of the border wall, end catch and release, enforce the Remain in Mexico policy, support our Customs and Border Patrol agents, go down to the border in the areas where people are entering the most, and listen to those local officials and hear their opinion and listen to their asks and lead. And also at all levels of government to stop the incentivizing and rewarding of illegal entry. Lastly, one comment on this shelter situation here in New York City. People are trying to figure out who's right. Is the mayor right that there's an increase now in our shelters because of people coming illegally to the city? Yes, there's an increase. It didn't start when the first bus arrived. It's been going on for a long time as these planes have been coming into New York. This isn't some new issue that just popped up. And there are people who are saying that for a long time there's been an issue with the shelter situation in New York City. And they're right too. So instead of just trying to point blame to others with regards to what's happening right now with a homelessness crisis in New York City, a mental health crisis in New York City, this is not a time to be pointing fingers at others. It's a time for all of us to work together to tackle it. And what we're seeing as a strain to the shelter system is this surge of illegal entry. I don't care about exactly what date it started. What we care about is how to fix it. And President Biden is in a position to do it. And while we can call on President Biden to act as much as we want, we also need the governor of the state of New York and the mayor of the city of New York to join us in this effort and demand leadership, accountability, and action on the part of the President of the United States, the president of their own party. Without any further ado, my colleague, my partner in this effort, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis.
Thank you, Lee. Look, I appreciate everyone being out here today because this is obviously a very serious issue. And let me start by saying that I'm the daughter of immigrants. My mother came here as a Cuban refugee. My father came from Greece. I understand the aspirations of the American dream. In my office, as a member of Congress, we actually have helped 65 people from over 15 different countries become U.S. citizens, people who got caught in the red tape, that got stuck in bureaucracy. They've been waiting years. And I'm very proud to have helped those people achieve their American dream and become a citizen. But what we're seeing transpire at our southern borders and now on the streets of our city is unacceptable, and it just lacks basic common sense. The reality is our president has incentivized illegal immigration, as has our governor and our mayor. The president has fought us at every single turn in our fight to secure our borders. He was taken to court regarding Title 42, regarding Remain in Mexico, even with a Supreme Court order for Remain in Mexico. He wanted to defy that, and now he's announced that he's officially getting rid of it. And that added some type of order, okay, that there's a process, that people applied, but they waited until their court date, and then they entered for their hearings. What is occurring right now is millions of people crossing our southern border illegally. We don't always know who they are. We don't always know what their intentions are. We do know that people who have been caught were on the terrorist watch list, over 50 people. We do know that the drug cartels are smuggling children for trafficking, women for sex trafficking, drug trafficking. As a matter of fact, here in New York, there was 2 Mexican drug cartel smugglers who were caught with $1.2 million in meth last month. And what happened? $1.2 million in meth. They were caught and then they were released right back onto our streets. Right back onto our streets. It's a combination of Kathy Hochul's disastrous bail law, completely irresponsible, and it is a result of the sanctuary city policies where police officers can't even ask individuals if they are of legal status, even when they commit a crime. And the people in this country are paying the price for it, literally, both with drugs, fentanyl flooding our streets, and paying for it, as is mentioned, to put them in hotels, individuals in hotels. Kathy Hochul in this year's budget incentivized illegal immigration once again. First, they were given free college tuition for those who are in the country illegally. Then, as Lee said, the disconnect between law enforcement in state and city with the federal, with the green light law. $220 million in this year's budget for free health care for those who are in the country illegally, when our seniors are suffering and paying the price. So this is about common sense, and this is about protecting our national security. It's about knowing who's coming in and out of our country, and it's about having some type of order where people are coming through legally, we are vetting them, we know who they are, and then they go through that process just like my parents did and just like most Americans' ancestors did. I think that the mayor and the governor should be joining our calls, because the mayor's right. The mayor's right. This is a burden to the city, to our resources, to our hospitals, to our schools, to our healthcare system. He's absolutely right about it. But what is the mayor doing about it? He is not joining our calls to stop this where it's actually starting, which is the president's policies, open border policies that have led to this. So I stand with Lee Zeldin in calling for our governor and our city to stop the hypocrisy, stop the incentives. Let's be serious about public safety. Let's be serious about protecting the taxpayers who are struggling right now in New York. They can't even pay their own rent. That's why homelessness and housing is all issues in our city. And yet you want them to now pay to house individuals who cross into our country illegally. And again, this is about making sure that we protect our borders, that we protect our national security, and we protect the taxpayers. And yes, we continue to be a compassionate nation and a compassionate city. But like I said, there's a right way to do it and the wrong way. And unfortunately, under Governor Hochul, we have seen those who do things the wrong way, whether it's criminals, career criminals on our streets, whether it be those who are breaking our nation's immigration laws, or just about anybody else who's doing things the wrong way. They're the ones who get rewarded under this administration. Any questions?
Congressman Zeldin, what about safety